Let's get over to the States and speak to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Duddridge, and find out what's going on there. So the top story is, of course, Trump and his indictments. It's been an interesting time for Donald Trump, so let's see if we can get hold of Paul Duddridge, because he's always got something interesting to say. We are struggling to get a connection with him. Oh, there you are, Paulie. So what's going on then? Get us up to date with the Trump indictments.
Yeah, I looked better before. Yes, the Trump indictments, they're going on apace. We've got 91 of them. It's not going to make a blind bit of difference to his campaign. In fact, it's helping it. He was in South Dakota this week on the greatest form. What I will say was that this week, and you put it up earlier, that he said he'd be prepared to and was interested in debating Meghan Markle, which would be a wonderful event that we would all be glued into. It's the world holds its breath hoping for the great Trump-Markle debate.
But she would never do that, because then she would look, well, I don't think it would work out well for her. He's an incredibly entertaining figure, and he's got a lot of support, whereas hers is waning. She wouldn't do it, would she? Do you think?
Well, it would be the only way she's going to get her Spotify deal back, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, true.
She should bite his hand off.
Yeah, she should do, shouldn't she, for her Spotify deal? Could you imagine? Yeah, she should actually, now you mention that.
Well, you know, she's got a track record of teaming up with people of German descent to get media deals. It would work out perfectly. It's a pattern.
But we know what they called a podcast, so I don't think what they called about the podcast. But what about the prospect? Now, let's move on to Biden, because there's a prospect that he could potentially drop out of the race for 2024. And people are actually are they discussing this?
Yeah, this is the interesting thing. The chatter has changed. Look, there's so many times we talk, and actually it's like a few weeks in advance. The chatter has changed. The reason I bring this up is that it's been now talked about, as opposed to whether Biden would ever drop out, it's how he would do it and when he would do it is now the talk. It's really interesting. And so what they're trying to do is make it, this is what the scenario that's playing out is that he would drop out at the last possible moment so that the Democratic Party could control the primaries and control who comes in. It would stop Harris, it would stop Kamala automatically replacing him. He would be able to see out his full term and be replaced by a parachute candidate at the last minute, and the Democrat Party would be able to hold control over everything. This is now being talked about in quite a lot. It's really interesting. It's really sneaky, absolutely.
It is sneaky, but ultimately you knew that they were kind of puppeteering this man anyway, because he, as you've seen, he doesn't really know what he's saying or what he's doing. So they were always using him as some sort of puppet so they could put in whoever they want to put in. And they're obviously going to try and do that at the best moment. But I think, but he's also apparently facing impeachment, a prospect of a vote. Is that right?
Oh, this is fantastic. Okay. Finally, the Republicans in the House. Now, the House, this is important. The House only gets elected for 2-year terms, and they've only got a 5 majority at the moment. But what Marjorie Taylor Greene, etc., want him impeached. And so what they're going to do is hold a vote very soon to impeach Biden. They're probably going to lose. And because it's an election year, they're going to go to the constituents of every Republican that votes for Biden against the impeachment. And they're going to go directly to the constituents and go, you see what your representative is doing? And then hold the vote again. They've actually got a very good chance. Again, much more sober writers than I are pointing out that this strategy could work. We could see a Biden impeachment now over the next 8 months.
Wow. But do you think that perhaps they, I don't know, listen, it would be very interesting. We'll keep our eyes on what happens in the whole political scene with America. Paul, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me. That is Paul Duddridge. He's the host of the Politics People podcast. You need to check him out. Thank you, Paul.